for chicane right, entry 3 bailed.
Well, it's that time of year again, and we are back here in the Kingdom of Kerry for the Killarney Killarney Historic Rally. This event attracts a huge amount of quality competitors from right here in Ireland to overseas. The spectators are in for a fantastic weekend of rallying in the southwest.
It's the 2018 Killarney Killarney Historic Stages Rally, which heralds the start of Christmas in Killarney. And what a lineup we have for this year's 8-stage one-day event, held over some of the most iconic stages that Irish rally cars will ever traverse. If you're looking for history, both in terms of cars and drivers, the stages on this year's event are truly some of the best, not only in Ireland, but worldwide.
Clear through, that's fine, and tightens, narrows.
And so to the ceremonial start in the centre of Killarney, where we meet two men who've represented Ireland on the World Rally stage. Waterford's Craig Breen, the ex-Citroën World Rally Championship driver, and Chris Meek's former co-driver, Paul Nagle. At the behest of the sponsors Killarney, the pair will be one of the 00 cars in their Metro 604.
Yeah, obviously I've waited a long time to finally get behind the wheel. So I grew up with this. I grew up following my dad for years and years on the side of the road, and in the mill and rain my mum was making tea and sandwiches and bringing us around to watch. So it's nice to finally get behind the wheel on myself, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Paul, you hadn't far to travel for today anyway.
No, it's my local rally. It's my dad founded this rally 20 odd years ago, so it's a rally. There's no pressure. It's just out, go, relax. It's completely different from the World Championship. We can go out and just enjoy ourselves and let the hair down a bit.
So as the crowd show their appreciation for the sights and sounds of the Metro, and for the very welcome presence of Breen and Nagle, it was time to meet the main field. And first through, the #1 seed in Historics, a former winner, Mark Falvey, in the Escort RS 1600.
Mark, second overall last year. You're a serious contender here this weekend.
Yeah, well, that's thereafter putting us #1 in to put the pressure on. So we'll give it a good shot now, and hopefully we'll be here tomorrow evening to talk to you.
Next up, one of our many Welsh visitors, Melvin Evans, seated #5 in Historics in his Mark II Ford Escort.
We keep on coming back. It's an event I've never won, and we've always been third or second or something like that, but it's getting harder to win every year. I'm getting older and there's younger boys coming in and the cars are getting better, but it's a great event to do.
While the crowds were on hand to see the likes of Breen and Nagle and the main field of competitors, there was also a huge welcome for the legendary Jimmy McRae, the 5-time British Rally champion and 2-time Irish champion, competing in a Vauxhall Firenze.
Rallies in Scotland and England, struggling for entries and having to cancel the events. And you come here, 150 entries, and look at the turnout tonight. It's fantastic. It's just great. Absolute fantastic.
Big cheer, big applause for Jimmy McRae.
As McRae rolled away in the Firenze, it was time to welcome the 2-time modified winner, Kerry's Rob Duggan, who'd entered the event in his Ford Escort Mark II.
Modifieds now, folks, and this is the #1.
Rob, you're not long off to play from Australia. Are you going for 3 in a row this year?
Yeah, definitely be flat from the word go. It'll be a tough challenge, a lot of tough opposition, but I didn't come back here to come second.
And so the ceremonial start was completed, and it was now time to turn the attention to what the maximum entry would face. And to Parc Fermé, and the sun had yet to rise as the cars and crews prepared to head to the first stage of the day, Malls Gap. But while the teams and crews can concentrate fully on the road ahead, out on the stages, it was full-scale preparation for the organisers and the TV crews. Scores of volunteers and marshals are needed to run the event every year, and there was no shortage of people willing to get involved to ensure the smooth running of the 2018 rally, even in the inclement conditions that greeted everyone before the start of this year's event.
Day is breaking, excitement is building as we are here in the iconic Malls Gap, where the cream of the crop will be turning out in force to tackle this challenging stage. It's a little bit misty here, but it will not dampen the spirits for this historic rally.
And so to the action over stages 1, 2 and 3. And the first car we see is the number 1 seed Mark Falvey, who won the event 5 years ago and who was second in 2017. Falvey had the experienced James O'Brien on the notes. Their escort had a slight misfire in the engine on the opening loop, and that put them into second place after 3 stages, 8.7 seconds off the leader. Second through on the gap was the Mark II of Marty McCormack and Barney Mitchell, who encountered problems on stage 1, which saw them lying only 8th. The pair went well on stage 2, climbing to 3rd, but the Gremlins returned and they retired with mechanical trouble on special stage 3. McCormack is a regular on the British rally scene, and indeed here in Ireland, and was disappointed to go out so early in Killarney. The leader after 3 was the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus of Owen Murphy and Anthony Nestor.
And still left of a flat crest, 40, 6 right, 40, real 2 left, there'll be real 2 left, tight 3 right, 40, very bad, 2 right, don't cut, 4 left opens, 60, short, 4 left tight.
The car is somewhat down in power compared to the escorts, but Murphy, who hails from County Cork, was happy with his tyre choice and the car was going well, despite some concerns over a slight brake calibre leak in the Sunbeam. And they caught the Eddie McCormack through the gap on stage 1.
Into 2 left at the chevron, and it's long, watch this now, it's long, get he understood it into you. Flat 6 right, 80.
There was a host of visiting Welsh crews in this year's event. One of those was Neil Williams with his County Cork navigator Anthony O'Sullivan. A steady start for the pair as they climbed to 4th by the end of the opening 3 stages, 46.4 seconds off Owen Murphy's lead. Melvin Evans was another of the strong Welsh contingent in his Mark II, with County Cork's Sean Haid on the notes. A gear knob came off on one of the morning stages, and then a few niggly issues throughout the loop, which meant they were 5th, 2.9 seconds off 4th place. Welshman Tommy Davies didn't have a great season in his Fiesta or 5, but he borrowed a mate's Mark I to have a crack in Killarney Historics and was 6th after 3 stages, 53 seconds off the historic leader Murphy. Ray Hilliard is a Kerryman living in London who returns home to do the rally every year in the Hill Twister Mark I. He and co-driver Conor Walsh were just outside the top 10 after 3 runs. Dennis Cronin and navigator Helen O'Sullivan were lying in 10th in the Mark II. Cronin was a previous winner in Killarney. He's the uncle of 4-time British champion Keith Cronin. Welshman Phil Collins, a regular on the Irish historic scene, usually runs in the modified section in the Mark II Escort. But he brought his Opel Ascona over for the first time. A great drive over Malls Gap to lie in 3rd.
150. Long flat crest. 180. Long right 2. Into easy left. And right 2 late. Then left 3 late over crest at the rocks. 100.
However, Collins punctured and damaged the steering on stage 2, dropping some 30-odd seconds, and he slipped to 8th in Historics. Another Welsh crew are Daniel Jones and Gerwin Barry in their Ford Escort. They were just behind Collins in 9th place, 4.3 seconds off their fellow Welsh competitor. Todd Falvey had switched from competing in a Porsche to a Mark II Escort and really enjoyed the drive, with son Peter calling the notes in the ex-Ernest Kidney Mark II. The soft-spoken Barry Jones is another Welsh driver and a former Irish historic champion. He and co-driver Brian Quinlan found the opening loop very slippy, and he'd be changing the tyre compound for the repeat loop if they were to move up from 13th overall. Johnny Greer is an Irish tarmac regular who, along with Kirsty Riddoch, switched from their regular R5 to a Sierra for this event. They lay in 7th place after the opening 2 stages and slipped back to 12th after 3, the first run over Cara Lake. Problems as well for the father and son crew, Joe and Richard Conley, who broke a bolt in the alternator in their RS 1600. They were happy to be still going and were just inside the top 20 after 3.
Long, 5 right, go, Nips. So Nips at the end, keep going though. 45 left, it's only 5. Go on to a 6 right. Go on, push on against fast 4 right now through the dip. Fast 4 right through the dip to a 200. Long 6 left over bumps to fast 3 right down here.
He may be 75 years young now, but there was a good opener for Jimmy McRae, who passed the ailing car of Raymond Johnston through the gap. However, McRae had trouble of his own on stage 2 when he spun the heavy Vauxhall Firenze. Morris and Stephen Maskell hail from Limerick, competing in their Ford Escort, and they had inched their way into the top 30 on historic standings after 3 stages.
100, 2 right, 150, then to square left. Commit to this now, push on here. 2 right, push on, and go. 150, turn square left, bail on the inside. Press jump. 80. 1 right, 60.
Donald O'Connor is a local driver, and navigator Anthony Roach from County Cork, alongside, found conditions very slippery on their opening 3 stages. But the Mark 1 was still going strong with 5 stages to run as they took us up the gap.
3 left, 80 up the middle, 3 right, and 5 left and 6 right.
We're moving to the faster modified section now, and the big crowds were at the top of Mall's Gap stage, where people had come from far and wide to watch the action, and one name seemed to be in the lips of many.
What brings you to Mall's Gap?
Because it's one of the best stages in Ireland and I really like it.
And who are you here to support?
Craig Breen.
Do you love the rallying?
Oh, I do, yeah.
And who are you here to see?
Craig Breen in 6R4.
It's one of the best stages in Ireland.
And what time were you here at this morning?
I was here at 7 o'clock.
Out before the breakfast?
Yeah, no breakfast yet.
Which is a fantastic stage to watch. So
and what time were you here at this morning?
we were here about 7:30. So left at 5 o'clock this morning.
Really looking forward to Craig Breen giving you a crack at it there now this morning, so we hope it'll be enjoyable anyway.
Love the historic best rally around, and best look to Craig Breen and Rob Duggan, the man himself from Tone, and hopefully it gives good entertainment for the day.
So down to the bottom of the gap, and on double O duties, Craig Breen and Paul Nagel. The pair weren't even competing in the event, but nevertheless, the big crowds were out in force to see the brute power of the Group B supercar, the iconic Metro 604. The in-car footage up the gap went viral around the world. It's now time to sit back and enjoy the ride. Just wow.
A massive privilege to be able to drive the car this morning on an iconic stage like that. So I loved it, enjoyed every second of it. It's 30-year-old technology, and even getting used to the gearbox. I would have never driven with a H-pattern box before, and I was missing gears and finding it hard in that regard. But I love it. It's really, really pure and raw, and it's what rallying is all about.
With Breen through, it was time to get back to the action. And last year's modified winner Rob Duggan and co-driver Ger Conway struggled with tricky conditions on stage 1, but they were happy to take over the lead on stage 2. And that advantage stood at 5.3 seconds after 3.
Sharp 5 left, into 5 right, tightens 4 right, late, 30, sharp 3 left, and right, 40, right, and left into 3 right minus, don't cut, into 3 left, and fast 3 right plus, don't cut, and flat 4 left, 50, clear sharp 3 right plus, don't cut, 60, 5 right half, long tightens 3 right.
Away then went the Flying Milkman, Donegal's Declan Gallagher in the rear-wheel drive Toyota Starlet. Gallagher had a dramatic spin on the opening stage and was very lucky that a bank saved him. However, he got going again and reckoned that he'd have to go for a harder tyre on the second run over the second loop in his bid to catch Duggan. Chris Armstrong and Chris Melly were very happy with their opening loop and were second for the first two stages, but they slipped to third as the modified battle intensified, 10.3 seconds off second place Gallagher.
Crest up, sharp 5 right. Into sharp 5 right over crest. 2 left, 40. 2 left, into 3 right, double tighten, sudden 5 left. 3 right, double tighten, sudden 5 left. And long 5 right, tightens late. The late, long 4 left over crest, 40, 2 right 60, 2 right 60, 4 left minus half long, 120.
Jonathan Pringle is a former national champion. He had a few moments on Malls Gap, but was happier with Ballacbema and Cara Lake and was up to fourth in modified. Surprisingly, perhaps, the quickest on Malls Gap was Colin O'Donoghue, a local driver and winner of the juniors at the Rally of the Lakes in May in a Civic. He had borrowed his dad Kevin's BMW for the historic rally, but after that impressive opening test, he was beset by intermittent technical gremlins as he slipped to fifth after 3 stages. In sixth, Gary Kiernan and Ryan Moore, who had pushed Rob Duggan close at last year's event, but wasn't going so well this year in the escort. Kiernan had work to do on the second loop and was over 30 seconds behind Duggan.
1 right over crest, 100. Down to hug 2 right at the bottom, 80. 1 right through the crest dip, 80. Must hug 1 right over crest, 120. Mid over crest dip, 40. To middle over long crest, 200. On down to stop 1 left over crest, only 30 to 4 right, don't cut.
Seventh and modified after 3, Endo O'Brien and John Butler. The Kenny pair who declared themselves happy with their setup and more than happy to be in the modified top 10 after 3 stages. David Bogey from Scotland and navigator John Rowan, in a brand new Mark II for this event, had some niggly setup issues on the opening loop, but the former British rally champion was enjoying the stages and indeed the atmosphere. Martin McGee and Dennis O'Mahony were just inside the modified top 10, the Donegal driver going well. They were just 4.6 seconds behind Bogey after 3 stages.
Carry 3 left 60 again, lead 4 left and shiny 5 right. Lead 4 left and shiny 5 right. 1 left, into, 4 left plus, mid 4 left plus, 100.
Rounding out the top 10 modifieds, Monaghan driver Raymond Conlon in the Toyota Corolla. So 3 stages down in this year's event. The top 5 in historics: Owen Murphy, Mark Falvey, Neil Williams, Melvin Evans and Thomas Davies. In modified, Rob Duggan leads Declan Gallagher ahead of Chris Armstrong, Jonathan Pringle and Colin O'Donoghue in 5th.
The calibre of the entries is incredible and it shows how popular this event still is. With world rally driver Craig Breen and rally legend Jimmy McRae on site, the atmosphere is electric here at the Rent Killarney Killarney Historic Rally. Join us for more action after the break.
Welcome back to the 2018 Rent-A-Killarney Killarney Historic Stages Rally as the crews prepare for their second run over the 3 stages: Malls Gap, Ballacbema and Cara Lake. And the historic leader heading into that second loop, County Cork's Owen Murphy, who led by 8.7 seconds after 3 in the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus.
Yeah, we've had a great morning. Now we had a good tyre choice this morning and we had a few problems there with a brake caliper leaking and an axle mount broke, but hopefully it'll stay going for the day.
Well, despite the brake caliper leaking, Murphy then reported no issues over the second set of stages and maintained his lead. After 6, the former Irish historic champion had his lead trimmed slightly though to 7.3 seconds.
Flat 6 left again and 5 left, 60. 3 right long, tightens at the opening. 5 left, 3 left, 3 right nips. And 2 left, there'll be 3 right nips, 2 left. And the 3 right tightens. 3 left, 40.
It was a great battle at the front of the Historics, with Mark Falvey trading times with Murphy on the repeat loop. The gap stood at just over 7 seconds with 2 stages to go, and it was all to play for over the double run over Kilcommon. The second loop was a good one as well for the Welshman Thomas Davies, who climbed to third in the escort. But as he was over 1.5 minutes off the lead, a place in the podium was perhaps now his aim.
These stages are one of the best in Europe. Are you delighted to be here?
Yes, it's lovely to be here. When you come over the top and you can see the gap, you can see the crowd, it's almost like you can sort of feel the atmosphere inside the car. Yeah, really glad to be back, and it's nice to do it.
Neil Williams had dropped behind his compatriot Davis into fourth, 3.3 seconds behind. Third place was still all to play for.
As we pulled a bit back now on that second run through Carroll Lake, we had a bit more of a commitment there. So yeah, all to play for.
Sadly though, this was the last we'd see of Melvin Evans, who retired not far into stage 4, the second run over Moll's Gap. Having been third at one point before dropping to 8th with a puncture, Phil Collins had a good loop to climb back up to 5th.
And flat left, get well out for a very long left one, extra late, continues over 150, then slowing at the end, right 3.
I dropped a fair bit of time this morning, got a puncture, damaged the steering, so we dropped 30 seconds or so. And we're fighting our way back, and we're back up to 5th. So, but it's all going to be, there's about 10 seconds over 5 cars, you know. And it's great to be involved in the historic, and you see how well some of these guys are going. I've really enjoyed it. After the first few issues, the car is really nice to drive. And yeah, I'm enjoying the day.
Wagging his tail like a happy dog off the start line, London-based local man Ray Hilliard was really putting on a show in the aptly named escort. The Hill Twister was doing its stuff. Campaigning in Citroën and Fiesta R5s in the 2018 Forestry Rally Championship, Catherine McCourt had registered for the 2019 Historic Championship and was just outside the top 10. After a tentative start, Andy Johnston was beginning to make headway now in the Vauxhall Chevette, and he and James McSharry were 13th on the historic standings. England's Duncan Williams, with co-driver Guy Weaver, are regulars on the Historic Championship. They were 15th. Galway's Ray Cunningham, a former overall winner in Killarney, was this year contesting the 2019 Championship and was leading the Minis after 6 stages.
Yeah, having a bit of fun, leading the Minis by not by a lot. Colin is pushing us very hard behind, so enjoying it though. Great fun, great fun.
Colin, you're having a great battle with Ray out there.
Yeah, we are, yeah. We're having a bit of a run, yeah. Good crack, yeah. Try and just keep her nice and clean and tidy. Get round, 2 more to go.
David and Nina Goose are a father and daughter crew over from England. They're regulars on the Historic Championship, 16th on the standings with 2 stages to go. Jimmy McRae was going well, but was concerned about a fluctuating engine temperature gauge in the Firenze as he bid to complete yet another historic rally in Killarney. Pat Looney is a local mechanic. He had a great drive at last year's event, but it wasn't going quite so well this year in the Mark 1 Escort.
We had a slow time the first time, found it very slippery. My first time we up there, it was very slippery. But we're still here, and that's the main thing, yeah, we're still here.
Alan, how are you finding the Irish roads here today?
Very, very, very challenging, very slippy. It's supposed to be fun, it is fun, but it's, yeah, you've got to be on your game today.
And did you make any changes at service?
Yeah, softer tyres on the front. Yeah, I was turning the steering wheel, nothing was happening. Yeah.
And so to the modified section. As the cars lined up at the bottom of the gap, there was just 5.3 seconds between the top 2 and this one. And indeed, over just 30 seconds separated the top 6. It was that close.
Rob, are you happy with how you're getting on out there?
Yeah, happy enough. Just slow getting started. Very hard to get into tricky conditions. Everyone's pushing hard behind. So, yeah, we need to keep the push on up here now and try and get a bit of time back.
Declan, how are you getting on out there?
I dead on now. We had a bit of a span there in the first one, but 2 good enough stages after that then, you know, so hopefully we're happy enough to be this far anyway. We nearly threw it all away in here the last time.
But before all of that, once again the sights and sounds of the Metro 604 with Craig Breen and Paul Nagel. The car and crew were the centre of attention at service back in Killarney, and many had stayed up in Moll's Gap to see the car once again traverse the famous old stage. Sadly though, Breen was forced to retire on stage 5 Bannockbeamer when the prop shaft broke after a jump. A sad end, but it was great to see it in action.
Yeah, unfortunately, just on the second run of Ballochbeamer, we've broken, I reckon it's a prop shaft or something in the transmission, so it's a pity. We had a really nice run on the gap. I'm really getting into it and was enjoying this one as well. So, but old cars and old technology, and you have to be a bit gentle with them sometimes, so maybe it's a lesson to be learned.
Not such a good day either for our early leader Rob Duggan, who retired with a blown engine on stage 4. The sound of the Escort going through the gap were the soundings of its death knell. As a result of Duggan's demise, Declan Gallagher took over the modified lead and had a controlled drive through the second loop. At the end of 6 stages, the Donegal driver has justified his long trip down from Donegal. He was 28.3 seconds ahead of the rest. Chris Armstrong was quickest on Mall's Gap second time around and was back up to second place. But it would be a big ask to reel in Gallagher on the final 2 stages.
2 left minus over crest, 120 to the dip. 1 right, 1 left, only 60, turn 4 left minus in the chevron. Cut. 40, 36 right, 6 right. Go, go, go.
I think Declan's too far ahead of us at the minute. We're on a big push, but he's just in a different pace. We're happy enough. There's a lot of people dropped out in the last loop, but if we get to the end now, we'll be happy.
Jonathan Pringle was up to third after stage 4, but his run came to an end on the next stage, Ballochbeamer 2, as he retired the Ford Escort. With Pringle out now, Gary Kiernan then took over third place. But he too bowed out of the event, this time in stage 6, Cara Lake. Not a good event for the usually reliable Kiernan. And it was now turning out to be a rally of attrition in the modified. Scotland's David Bogie also retired. Mechanical trouble with the throttle, the cause of his demise.
He edged towards the end of the stage there with a problem with the fly-by-wire motor that failed, so basically we had no throttle, and between that and then it sticking on, it was just a case of switching it off and preserving the engine and keeping the car on the road.
With Manny ahead of him, falling by the wayside, Enda O'Brien was surprised to find himself up to third now, 46.5 seconds off the overall modified lead.
We're having fun out there. We're just these last few stages now are just such a pleasure to drive. We're just coming off the stage with a smile on our face, so we're lucky we're tired. A good few of the rest are falling out, so yeah, no, we're really having fun.
Martin McGee was also the beneficiary of retirements, and he was now up to fourth, but McGee had some moments of his own.
Into 4 right, 40.
Well held, sir.
40, there's a Royal. Shiny tight 5 right. Push, 3 left opens to 1 left. Maybe don't push. 3 left opens to 1 left, 60. Turn 5 left plus. Turn 5 left plus. End crest. 5 left don't cut. 80. 2 right over crest, 60.
Colin O'Donoghue and Eddie Doherty were still having some technical issues in the BMW, but it was quite the sight and indeed sound through the valleys of the kingdom, as he was now fifth with 2 to run. It's a beautiful noise.
Colin, how are you getting on out there?
Not great. We had a lot of problems all day today. The car keeps cutting out, but we had a good cut in the gap this morning. We set fastest, so we were happy with that.
Next through, the Waterford brothers, Richard and Brian Harney, really enjoying the stages and 7th in class.
And a 6 left and a 5 left. 6 and a 5 now, remember the 5. 60. Caution crest 3 right and 3 right again over crest. Caution crest 3 right and 3 right again over crest. Into 6 left.
8th, Jason Black and Carl Egan. Black, the national junior champion, and Billy Coleman finalist for the Young Rally Driver of the Year. lack of some early mechanical issues, but was going well now when they started.
One left, 60, care, two left, black, two left over crest, don't cut, go out, and a caution, long two left, tightens to a 3, 40, slippy 4 right, 80, keep right, for 3 left, don't cut.
Patrick McHugh and Pádraig O'Donnell had made the long trip south from Donegal, and the Northwest crew were up to 9th. John Devlin and John McCarthy switched from a Talbot Sunbeam to a Mark II Escort, and they rounded out the top 10 in modifieds with 2 to go. Our first look at Vincent O'Shea, the Kenmare driver, with Cavan's Sean Bruton sitting in for the first time. They were 11th on the standings. The Limerick driver with his crowd-pleasing style is Stephen Baughan and co-driver Chris O'Donnell. Kerr lay in 12th with 2 to run.
Go 250, it's flat to the square right. Power down. Go 250. And you've a flat crest, 100. And you've a flat crest again, 200. Turn square right. You see the square right above. Good man. Go 300 up the middle. Get around it. Power down. Come on, get around it. Come quick. Power down. 300. And a K 5 right plus past the mirror.
Local father and son crew, Charlie and Johnny Hickey, in one of 4 Rent-A-Kill backed cars. Charlie is the most experienced driver in the rally, and Johnny is heavily involved in organising the event. Tommy McDonough and Paul Hickey are a Clare crew. They're regulars in Killarney.
2 left over crest, 100 up the hill. And then we have a fast 2 right over crest jump. 2 right over crest jump. 80, right on crest, 100. Be flown for the bumps here for a 4 right. Watch the bump here now for the 4 right slippy.
Conor Murphy and Kieran Donoghue, another local crew. Conor inherited this Escort from his dad Ed and was putting it to good use on his home rally.
4 right. Into 2 left long nips, 80, 4 left in over gravel, 40, 3 left, into 4 left in at the sign, you know it, 4 left in at the sign, you know it, 100, sharp 4 right, 100, lay 3 left plus over crest, don't cut, 60.
Bob Moran and Ona Donoghue, another local crew, going well, reporting no issues. Lucky pair.
3 right, into, 3 left, into, 3 right, don't cut, into, fast 5 left, bump maybe, and flat crest, and 1 left, 40.
And here's Thomas Randalls and Tony Healy, winner of the inaugural Carlow Mark II Challenge back in 2004. Randalls out of retirement and enjoying his run. He hopes to return next year in a new Escort.
6 right, 80 up the middle. Up for that, come on. And a push 3 right, 130 to up to the gap. Third square left. Come on. Square left, now nice and neat. 40 and a left over crest into 6 left. And the gravel. The 6 left, don't cut. 80.
So the top 5 in Historics after 6 stages, 2 to run. It is Owen Murphy who leads from Mark Falvey, but the gap is minimal. Thomas Davies in 3rd, ahead of Neil Williams and Phil Collins in 5th place. Leading the modifieds is Declan Gallagher, Chris Armstrong in 2nd, Enda O'Brien, Martin McGee and Colin O'Donoghue make up the top 5.
What an incredible event so far, and it's not over just yet. The crowds have turned out in their droves for the Rent-A-Kill Initial Killarney Historic Rally. Join us for more action after the break.
Welcome back to part 3 of this year's Killarney Historic Stages Rally as we look forward to the final 2 stages, the back-to-back runs over Kilcummin, which is located to the north of Killarney, and things couldn't be tighter at the top of the historic section of this year's event, as going into the last 2 stages, just 7.3 seconds separated the Talbot Sunbeam of leader Owen Murphy and the Escort of Mark Falvey. It was going to be a battle royal to the finish between the pair.
Yeah, it is very close. It's nip and tuck all day. There's only been a couple of seconds every stage, so we're pushing as hard as we possibly can, and Mark is in the same boat. So down to the last 2 stages now, we'll see. We'll have to have a good time first time out in it.
Mark, a great battle between yourself and Owen. You're lying in second again.
Yeah, we're second again this year. It's a bit less this year, 7 seconds. So we have 2 stages to go. It's 3.5 seconds a stage. So we'll see, can we do it?
As it had been all day, there were big crowds onto the stage at Kilcommon waiting to see how the battle between Murphy and Falvey would unfold. And we caught up with a wedding couple who delayed their ceremony for the rally. Now that's commitment.
Paula and Liam, you moved your wedding to accommodate the rally today.
We did. We moved it an hour back.
That's fantastic. Are you devastated you're missing it now?
We are. We'd love to hear it. It's a pity we couldn't hear the drumming outside during the mass.
Liam, how do you feel about missing the rally today? You're not too devastated.
Oh, not too bad, no.
It's a little bit more costly, a wedding or a rally. Which one?
I'd say the rally.
We'll leave Paula and Liam to enjoy their celebrations as we turn to Stage 7, the penultimate run of this year's event at Kilcommon. And Murphy gave himself a little breathing room as he extended his overall lead to 9.6 seconds. Now the Corkman done enough to win his first ever Killarney Historic Rally. He certainly wasn't holding back.
Turn flat, 2 right, 200. Middle of a flat crest. Repeat, 200, middle of a flat crest, 200. Flat crest again, and flat 6 right over finish, 200. Give it at it, flat 6 right, 200, well done.
It was all now up to second place Mark Falvey and James O'Brien. They had just under 10 seconds to make up now when they traversed the stage for the second time. It was all or nothing for Falvey as the last stage of this year's event loomed. Thomas Davies had managed to force his way up to third now with 1 to go in his escort, and he held that third place by 1.3 seconds. Slipping to fourth on the second last stage, Neil Williams in the escort. But he was still not out of that chase for third and would hope that his second run at Kilcommon would take him past Davies. A puncture early on for Phil Collins in the Opel Ascona really put paid to any chance that Collins would have had. He was fifth though in Historics as he approached the final stage. While the action was going on in the Historics, there was no problem in the Modifieds for Declan Gallagher and John McGrath. Such was their lead. They could probably have done the final stage in reverse and still won, despite this stall. Second, but still with work to do to hold on to that second place, Enda O'Brien and John Butler in the Mark II. They led the third place crew by just 7.1 seconds. Chris Armstrong was second after 6 stages, but he disappeared from our timing sheets in the penultimate stage, allowing O'Brien up to second.
Turn shiny, square right minus. We turn shiny, square right minus.
Martin McGee and Dennis O'Mahony and their escort were now third. If they pushed hard enough, they could really have a chance of snatching second in modifieds on the last stage. Colin O'Donoghue and Eddie Doherty were safely in fourth place in the modifieds in the BMW with 1 stage to go. As ever, there's a huge contingent of Kerry crews and Killarney Motor Club men. Here's some highlights of the locals on their home rally.
Dave, one of the top local men here today.
Trying to get back into it. I wasn't out competing with a long time, so the pace has gone wild quick.
How are you faring out at the moment?
It's slippy, but getting used to it.
This is Jason Farrell, the son of clerk of the course Martin Farrell, with Clina Murphy on the notes, carrying out safety duties in the Honda Civic. And Jason's father Martin was delighted at how the event was going this year.
Miles Gap this morning, it was like the old days, you know. It was like a lakes event in May, in December, you know. It was fabulous. The banners, the crews, with Renticle on board, they came on board again for another 3 years. We're going with 9 or 10 months now with preparation. It's been unbelievable. Without Mike O'Mahony of Renticle, it just wouldn't happen.
The prize giving would be back at the Rally HQ at the Gleneagle Hotel later in the evening, and this what was up for grabs as the crews battled it out for class honours. And so to the class honours as the fans waited for the conclusion of the final stage. Class 1 winners Kevin Flanagan and Vanessa Hamilton from Wicklow and Scotland respectively in the Austin Mini Cooper. Class 2 winners David Fleming and Kevin Doherty in their Austin Mini. Class 3 winners Tommy McDonough and Paul Hickey from County Clare in their Mark II. Class 4 honours went to Lloyd Hutchinson and Willie Fitzpatrick from County Wicklow and Laois respectively in their Cooper S. In Class 5, the national junior champion Jason Black and Carl Egan, he finishes off a fine year with a class win in the Toyota Starlet. In Class 6, 5th were Leonard Downey and Mark Murphy, both from County Cork, in their Ford Escort Mark II. 4th, Dave Slattery and Dennis Coffey from County Kerry in the Ford Escort. Slattery hadn't competed for 7 years, and he takes home the O'Riordan Trophy for the best Kerry crew. 3rd, John Devlin and John McCarthy in their Mark II Ford Escort. 2nd in Class 6, Richard and Brian Harney from County Waterford in their Mark II. The winners of the class, Raymond Conlon and Damien Fleming in the Toyota Corolla. And to the top 3 overall in the modified section. 3rd home, Martin McGee and Dennis O'Mahony in the Ford Escort. 2nd, eclipsing Martin McGee by just 7.1 seconds, Enda O'Brien and John Butler in their Mark II Ford Escort. But the runaway winner of the modifieds, Donegal's Declan Gallagher and John McCarthy in their rear-wheel drive Toyota Starlet.
Look, we really enjoyed the event, and you know, it's a pity we lost so many boys along the road, you know, but look, you have to get to the end too, and fair play to John here for all his hard work, and the boys at Powertune Motorsport, like the car, was faultless all day, and we really enjoyed it.
Moving on now to the historic classes, and in Class K, 5th home, Brendan McAree and Niall Kelly from County Monaghan in their Porsche 911. 4th, Joe and Richard Connolly from County Kilkenny via the USA for Joe. Ford Escort RS 1600, their car of choice. Third home, Guy Anderson and Steve Link, one of our English visitors in the Mitsubishi Galant. Sadly, Andy Johnston and James McSharry, who had been 3rd, retired on the final stage in their Vauxhall Chevette. 2nd, Todd and Peter Falvey, the local crew, in their Ford Escort Mark II. And the trip was worthwhile for Jonathan Greer and Kirsty Riddock from County Down and Scotland respectively in their Ford Sierra as they took class honours. In B2, 3rd home was Kenneth Tracy and Brian Hutton from County Carlow in their Morris Mini. 2nd, Colin McDowell and Wendy Blackledge in the Austin Mini. And 1st home, the veteran Ray Cunningham and Kevin Keane from County Galway in their Morris Mini Cooper S. Class C1 winners, Tom O'Brien and Scott O'Brien from County Cork in their Austin Mini. C3, 3rd home, Mike Simpson and Dale Gibbons in their Mark I Escort. 2nd home in Class C3, Pat Looney and John Falvey, the local crew, doing well in their Mark I Ford Escort. First in that class, Morris and Stephen Meskel from County Limerick in their Escort.
Chris, again okay? This is all go. Bus stop now is tight, left hand entry. 130 out of it. Through crest dip. 130 out of it through crest dip.
Moving on to Class C5. Second home, the legend that is, Jimmy McRae and co-driver Mikey Galvin in the Vauxhall Fiorenza.
Jimmy, it's great to finish another historic rally.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. As I said before, you know, Killarney's just got an atmosphere where you don't get this anywhere else. And even the pouring rain at the finish, there's still loads of people here, so it's been great.
First home in C5, Thomas Davies and Shane Buckley in the Ford Escort. In D3, third home, Alan Watkins and Erla McCarthy in the Mark II Ford Escort. Second in that class, from the Isle of Man, Declan Jackson and his County Donegal co-driver Sean Lafferty in their Ford Escort. The winner, Duncan Williams and Guy Weaver, English pair in the Ford Escort. In D5, fifth in class, Barry Jones and Brian Quinlan from Wales and County Cork respectively in their Mark II. Fourth, Ray Hilliard and Conor Walsh in the Ford Escort RS 1600. Third, Dennis Cronin and Helen O'Sullivan from County Cork in their Mark II Ford Escort. Second, Cahan McCourt and Barry McNulty from Tyrone and County Fermanagh respectively in their Mark II Ford Escort. And first in class, and also finishing in fifth overall, Daniel Jones and Gerwin Barry from Wales in their Ford Escort. The E2 class winner, Les Alfrey and Keith Fellows, visiting from the UK. And to the overall in the historics, Phil Collins and Adrian Deasy had been third at one point, but sadly for them, they retired their Opel Ascona on the very last stage. Setting fastest time on the final stage, Neil Williams and Anthony O'Sullivan overhauled Thomas Davies and Shane Buckley to take third on the historic podium. And despite going 9 seconds quicker than Murphy on the final stage, it wasn't enough for Mark Falvey and James O'Brien, who had to settle for the runner-up spot for the second year in a row. And to the victory ramp at the Gleneagles in the rain, and Murphy celebrated the win by just 1.1 seconds. It couldn't have been much closer.
Owen, what a great drive today. How's it feel to be a champion?
It's brilliant. We've been trying to win this for a couple of years now, and it was a fierce close finish at the end with only a second between us, but delighted. It's the first time a Sunbeam won the rally as well, so it is fantastic.
He did his best, but Falvey just couldn't close the gap on that final stage.
It's got fairly close there towards the end. 0.7 I think of a second on our time cards anyway, so next year again we'll have to try and get the top spot.
So the top five in historics, the winner Owen Murphy and Anthony Nestor, just 1.1 seconds ahead of Mark Falvey and James O'Brien. Third, Neil Williams. Fourth, Thomas Davies, and Daniel Jones in fifth place.
The Rentokil Initial Killarney Historic Rally has proven once again why it is the most prestigious event for historic rally cars. The weather hasn't dampened the spirits, and we've seen some outstanding performances from all of the drivers. From all of us here at the Gleneagle Hotel and the On The Limit Sports team, thank you so much for watching. See you soon.
Sadly, not long after the event, Maurice Nagle, father of Paul Nagle, and who founded this rally some 22 years ago, passed away after a short illness. The Killarney and District Motor Club described the late Maurice as a true rally supporter and legend who'll be sadly missed by all. Ar Yeste, go Rev a Anam.